embark on a journey back to the early 19th century, a time when the American West was a vast, uncharted mystery. We all know the names Lewis and Clark, but the full story of their epic expedition is far more complex and fascinating than what the history books usually tell us. This isn't just a tale of two explorers. It's a saga of survival, diplomacy, scientific discovery, and the collision of cultures filled with moments of sheer terror and incredible wonder. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made a monumental decision: the Louisiana Purchase. Overnight, the United States doubled in size, acquiring 828,000 square miles of land from France. But what exactly had he bought? No one really knew. The maps were blank, filled with rumors of giant volcanoes, mountains made of pure salt, and even herds of prehistoric mammoths. Jefferson, a man of science and vision, needed answers. He envisioned an American empire of liberty stretching from coast to coast, but to achieve that, he needed someone to chart a path to find the fabled Northwest Passenger water route to the Pacific Ocean. His choice for this daunting task was his personal secretary, Captain Meriwether Lewis. At just 29 years old, Lewis was a skilled soldier, an outdoorsman, and a keen observer, but he wasn't a trained scientist. So, Jefferson sent him to Philadelphia, the nation's scientific capital, for a crash course in botany, zoology, celestial navigation, and medicine. Lewis learned how to preserve plant specimens, identify animal species, and even perform basic surgery skills that would prove to be life-saving. For his co-commander, Lewis chose his old army friend, William Clark. Clark was older, more experienced in frontier life, and a brilliant cartographer. His maps would become one of the expedition's most enduring legacies. Together, they formed a perfect partnership, a bond of trust so strong that they would share command without a single major disagreement throughout the entire perilous journey. They assembled a team of about 45 men, known as the Corps of Discovery. This wasn't just a group of soldiers. It was a hand-picked crew of skilled hunters, blacksmiths, carpenters, and boatmen. They were tough, resourceful, and ready for anything. Or so they thought. In the spring of 1804, they set off from St. Louis, heading up the mighty Missouri River in a custom-built 55-foot keelboat and two smaller pirogues. The journey upstream was brutal. The river's current was a relentless force, and the men often had to get out and pull the heavy boats with ropes from the muddy banks. Plagued by swarms of mosquitoes and blistering heat, they were entering a world completely unknown to them, a land teeming with wildlife they had never seen before, enormous herds of bison that stretched to the horizon. Prairie dogs they called barking squirrels, and the formidable grizzly bear, an animal far larger and more aggressive than any bear they knew back east. Their first encounter with a grizzly nearly ended in disaster, as it took multiple rifle shots to bring the powerful beast down, teaching them a crucial lesson in humility. As they traveled, their mission was not just exploration, but also diplomacy. Jefferson had instructed them to establish peaceful relations with the Native American tribes they encountered. They came bearing gifts medals with Jefferson's image tools, and textiles, and delivered speeches about a new great father in Washington. The initial encounters were a delicate dance of protocol and misunderstanding, with dozens of different tribes, each with its own language, customs, and political landscape. Communication was a huge challenge. By the fall of 1804, with winter approaching, the Corps had traveled 1,600 miles to what is now North Dakota. Here, they built Fort Mandan and settled in for the winter among the Mandan and Hidatsa tribes. This winter would prove to be a turning point, largely thanks to the arrival of two crucial figures: a French-Canadian fur trader named Toussaint Charbonneau and his young Shoshone wife, Sacagawea. While Charbonneau was hired as an interpreter, it was Sacagawea who would become invaluable. She was not a guide in the traditional sense, but her presence was a symbol of peace to other tribes. A war party would never travel with a woman and a baby. Her knowledge of edible plants saved the men from starvation, and her calm demeanor during a crisis, rescuing crucial journals and instruments from a capsized boat, earned her deep respect. In February 1805, she gave birth to a son, Jean-Baptiste, whose presence on the journey further softened their image to the native peoples. When spring arrived, the expedition sent the keelboat back downriver with a treasure trove of specimens for Jefferson live prairie dogs, animal skins, skeletons, and detailed reports. The permanent party, now numbering 33, continued west into the true unknown. But they were now in grizzly country, and the landscape was becoming more rugged. Their biggest challenge lay ahead: the Rocky Mountains. They desperately needed horses to cross the mountains before the winter snows trapped them. Their hopes rested on finding Sacagawea's people, the Shoshone. In a moment that seemed scripted for a Hollywood movie, the expedition finally encountered a Shoshone band. As Lewis tried to negotiate, Sacagawea suddenly recognized the chief Wait, he was her brother, from whom she had been separated years earlier when she was captured by a rival tribe. This tearful, miraculous reunion secured the horses and the aid they needed to tackle the treacherous Bitterroot Mountains. But the crossing was a nightmare. Guided by a Shoshone man named Old Toby, they found themselves on a high, rugged trail with little game to hunt. The men grew weak, starving to a point where they were forced to eat their pack animals and even candles made from animal fat. It was the lowest point of the journey. Clark wrote in his journal, "I have been wet and as cold in every part as I ever was in my life." Just when they were about to give up hope, they emerged from the mountains, half-starved and exhausted, into the homeland of the Nez Perce tribe. The Nez Perce could have easily wiped them out in their weakened state. Instead, they showed them incredible kindness, providing food and shelter, nursing them back to health, and helping them build new canoes for the final leg of their journey down the Columbia River. Paddling with the current for the first time in over a year, they raced towards the Pacific. On November 7, 1805, after a year and a half of travel, Clark famously wrote in his journal, "Ocean in view. Oh, the joy. They had made it." They weren't the first non-natives to see this coast, but they were the first Americans to cross the continent. They spent a wet, miserable winter at Fort Clatsop, near the mouth of the Columbia River. It rained almost every single day. But here, in this damp fort, a remarkable moment of democracy occurred. When deciding where to build their winter camp, the captains put it to a vote. For the first time in recorded American history, a woman, Sarah, and an African-American man, Clark's enslaved servant, York, were allowed to vote alongside the white men of the cause. The journey home in 1806 was faster, but still dangerous. To cover more ground, Lewis and Clark split their party. Lewis took a more direct route, which led to the only violent conflict of the entire expedition: a skirmish with a small group of Blackfeet warriors that left 2 of them dead. Meanwhile, Clark explored the Yellowstone River. The parties reunited on the Missouri and raced home. On September 23, 1806, more than 2 years after they had left, the cause of discovery paddled into St. Louis. The citizens were stunned. They had long been given up for dead. They returned not with news of a Northwest Passage. It didn't exist, but with something far more valuable. They brought back a wealth of scientific knowledge. Hundreds of detailed maps that would guide the next generation of pioneers, and an unparalleled account of the West's geography, its people, and its natural wonders. The untold story of Lewis and Clark is not just about 2 heroes. It's about the entire cause of discovery, the hunters, the blacksmiths, and the boatmen who endured unimaginable hardship. It's about Sacagawea, whose intelligence and presence were indispensable. It's about York, who played a significant role in relations with native tribes who were fascinated by his appearance. And it's about the countless Native Americans, the Mandan, the Shoshone, the Nez Perce, whose help was the difference between success and failure, between life and death. Their journey didn't just chart a path across a continent. It opened a new chapter in the American story, one that was far more complex, challenging, and filled with human drama than we often remember. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the past. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more untold stories from history. See you next time.